12 News at 10 with Mark Curtis and Caribe Divine starts now.
We begin tonight hearing from the widow of a man shot and killed by Glendale police in a standoff last week. She's now calling for more mental health resources. Good evening and thanks so much for joining us for 12 News at 10. I'm Caribe Divine.
I'm Mark Curtis. The woman says her husband didn't get the help that he needed. 12 News journalist Jade Cunningham has more tonight in a story you'll only see on 12 News.
Nearly a week after a standoff with Glendale police.
Just feels like I'm in between a nightmare and a dream.
The widow of Carl Komorowski choosing to speak about her husband.
He tried to get help. We tried to get him help.
And what happened that day.
But
on Wednesday, September 4th, Glendale police were called to their home near 56th Avenue in Thunderbird after neighbors and family believed Komorowski had violated his order of protection and was inside the home.
when I don't answer for long periods of time, whether they call or text, and not just my neighbors, but my family and the few close friends that I have, they know something is wrong. So I opened the door. It was our neighbor and who had called me, like I said, and he was asking if I was okay.
But it wasn't. Carl, she says, told her to go outside and smooth things over. Instead, she grabbed her 6-year-old daughter and ran. By then, neighbors had called police and authorities had already arrived.
And then the next thing I know, there's a slew of cop cars, SUVs. I see SWAT in my neighbor's backyard with weapons pointed at our house. The negotiator tried for 2-3 hours.
Komorowski had barricaded himself inside and at times fired at officers.
And he wasn't complying.
At one point, authorities say he exited the home firing a rifle at police, and that's when officers shot and killed him. The two had been married for 7 years.
In the beginning, he was super fun and funny.
But his behavior, she says, got more volatile. In July, Komorowski was arrested on 3 counts of sexual exploitation of a minor, but wasn't charged with the crime. The Maricopa County Attorney's Office sent the case back to Glendale PD for further investigation. Still, between that and other actions, Carl's widow filed that protection order.
It's all in the sake of the protection of myself and him making threats of violence and keeping our daughter safe, and also physical violence. So it has torn me up because he's not the person that I married.
Now as she finds the strength to move forward, she's still in disbelief by what happened.
You know, I'm just trying to take things day by day.
And says she's trying to stay strong, not just for her, but for her daughter as well. Jay Cunningham, 12 News.
All right, Jade, thanks. Friends have created a GoFundMe to help the mother and the daughter. We've put a link to that on our website, 12news.com. Looking ahead to tomorrow, the Phoenix Law Enforcement Association is set to hold a fundraiser to support the family of Officer Zane Coolidge. The 5-year veteran of the department was shot and killed in the line of duty last week. He leaves behind a wife and a 5-month-old daughter. We wanted to let you know there's a barbecue happening tomorrow, and all the proceeds will go to the family. It's happening from 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. at the plea office located at 1102 West Adams in downtown Phoenix. You can also donate directly to Officer Coolidge's family. We have a link posted on our website and mobile app. Meanwhile, 12 News has learned that the suspect in the shooting was an investigative lead in another homicide. Phoenix police confirming that Saul Bal was looked at after the murder of 32-year-old Justin Lynch back in January of 2023. Finch was shot and killed in an apartment at I-17 in Camelback. Police say they were never able to establish probable cause, and that case remains open. Meanwhile, over the weekend, charges against Bal were upgraded to include first-degree murder for the death of Officer Coolidge.
New at 10, 12 News has learned that an Arizona woman was among 3 people killed in a plane crash in Oregon last weekend. 79-year-old Jacqueline Whitford is from Glendale, and she was the flight instructor on board a Cessna with a 73-year-old pilot who also died. The NTSB says that the pair were conducting a maintenance test flight at the time. The plane struck a set of powered transmission lines before crashing into a home, killing a 75-year-old woman inside. Whitford's family created a GoFundMe following her death. On the page, her granddaughter said, quote, "One thing that brings our family some solace is that she died doing what she loved. Jackie was an amazing pilot, and flying was the love of her life next to her family." Now to some developing news out of Buckeye, where a high school principal was arrested last week accused of luring a minor for sexual exploitation. Tonight, we're learning that the Maricopa County Attorney's Office has turned down the case altogether. It comes on the same night that the Buckeye Union High School District Governing Board met for the first time since the principal's arrest and voted to fire him. Let's get straight out to 12 News journalist Bianca Bono, who was there for that meeting. And Bianca, how did parents there respond to this news?
Caribe, most people who were here, including parents, even board members, are likely just now finding out about this late-breaking news. Tonight, parents packed into this board meeting, advocating for that principal to be fired on the heels of his arrest, and the board voted to terminate him. Now, it's unclear what happens next.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye. A stunning turn of events Monday night in Buckeye. Parents packed into a Buckeye Union High School governing board meeting, watching as the board voted unanimously to terminate Buckeye Union High School principal Joe Kinney after he was arrested for luring a minor for sexual exploitation. As the meeting ended, the Maricopa County Attorney's Office announcing they've turned down the case.
Something has to change to protect our kids.
Melissa Martin's teenage daughter is a student at Buckeye Union High, reacting in real time.
I'm thinking about my daughter, but like of all of these other minors and the other little girls that he admitted to talking to.
Records show Kinney was arrested after communicating with an undercover FBI agent on social media who was posing as a 12-year-old girl. In the conversation, after sending clothed photos of himself, Kinney allegedly told who he thought was a minor that she was hot. He was aroused by her, that he could toss her around, among other sexually explicit comments, and she should take off her clothes. Police say in their interview with Kinney, he admitted to talking to multiple girls online who claimed to be underage, including one person who said she was 9. But in a statement, a spokesperson for the county attorney's office said the crime of luring requires proof that the suspect knew or should have known that the person he was communicating with was a minor, adding prosecutors require evidence that the suspect intended to follow through and engage in sexual conduct with a minor. There was no such evidence in this case.
You failed our students.
Earlier in the night, parents advocated for Kinney's termination.
Paying this guy still after these accusations is just like not acceptable.
After going into executive session, the board voted unanimously to fire him.
We do everything that we can to protect the safety of our students.
That vote coming prior to finding out about Kinney's case being turned down.
I don't know anything about that.
Parents now uncertain what happens next, hoping the board's vote sticks when charges did not.
The board just terminated his employment, and then we find this out. I'm just terrified, honestly.
And I should note, in court records, Kinney told police that he claimed that he never actually thought that the people he was messaging with were minors. He described it as fantasy and role play. Now, because this is all breaking so late tonight, it's unclear exactly what happens next now that the board has voted to terminate him, but we'll let you know as soon as we find out. We're live in Buckeye tonight. Bianca Bono, 12 News.
Bianca, thanks. Let's get a look at your weather forecast right now. Meteorologist Lindsay Riley. It's music to our ears, Lindsay, that you're tracking a cool down. I mean, it's going to be in the 60s?
And I wish.
70s?
We might have to wait for January for 60s, but 100 instead of 110 and 150.
Oh, so it's all relative.
It's all relative, yes. A cool down for September standards in Phoenix. That we're talking highs around the triple digits by the weekend, around 100 degrees. Now, tomorrow, Wednesday, and Thursday, daily highs are still going to range anywhere from 107 to 109. But we're moving in the right direction by the weekend. By Saturday, it's 102, and temperatures drop down to 100 degrees by Sunday. Not much monsoon moisture to speak of. We saw a few showers north of I-40 and near the White Mountains, but Lower deserts were dry today. Here's a look at our 12 News exclusive monsoon meter for tomorrow. We do have 2s up in the high country, White Mountains and northern Arizona. That's where we could see a few isolated afternoon storms. The rest of the state is going to be dry tomorrow and with high heat. But again, we're tracking that cool down. More on that in just a few minutes. Caribe.
All right, Lindsay, thank you.